I think during the pandemic, we all became familiar with this concept of supply chains and global supply chains and where stuff comes from. And boy, when the ship stops sailing, that's a problem. And do we need to bring some of that stuff closer to home? And that's one of the reasons I think for President Trump and his focus on tariffs here. But let's get a sense of what the global supply chains are looking at now and how they may react in a world where tariffs are higher. Brandon Daniels joins, CEO of Exiger. He joins us from Chicago. Brandon, how do you put into context all this talk about tariffs and kind of what it means for the global supply chain and how we get stuff, where we make stuff, where we import stuff from? How do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. It's good to talk to you guys today. I think when we think about it, it is a reflection of a major shift in priorities across all countries from a global commerce perspective, right? Like when you think about what the United States is doing and what the administration is doing, is they're trying to prioritize three things, right? The first thing that we've in our discussions and in our talks with the administration, they want to bring back manufacturing where the United States can be competitive. And that's what our customers are utilizing our AI tools today and our multi-tier supply chain visibility to understand where can they actually source in the United States in a way that is at parity with their global sourcing requirements. And so that is mostly focused on where labor arbitrage has been taken out of the equation. So think things like additive manufacturing, think things like, largely automated production floors. Those are the areas where you're starting to see major cost collapse in between emerging markets and more sophisticated markets, because the cost of the manufacturing equipment, it's the same across the globe. The cost of the land, I mean, there's parts of North Texas that are cheaper than parts of Hebei, China. And with the volume of operators necessary in these factories going down and them having to be also more higher skilled, the major labor arbitrage effect kind of dwindles. And so they want to move those areas of automated manufacturing back to the United States. And so I see our customers focused on those commodity areas, as well as some of the more specialized areas that require automated manufacturing floors, that stuff coming back to the US. The second thing is national security and economic security. So from a national security perspective, there's a core focus on semiconductors, because AI is the future of our national security capacity, whether it's in managing, UAS and drones, or it's in, fighting cyber attacks. AI is where it's at. And then the other area is in pharmaceuticals. It's actually keeping our, medical supply chains clean and independent. Obviously we pulled back the veil on that in COVID. Exiger was the technology utilized by the federal government to purchase $7 billion of goods, and to do it in a way that could get it to the healthcare front lines quickly, and in a way that didn't allow for fraud, waste, abuse, and adversarial investment. And I think they're looking to try to expand that and trying to bring back pharmaceutical manufacturing, medical device manufacturing to the United States. And so when I look at this, I see those two first strategies getting, sort of being prioritized. The last one is honestly to ramp up our actual external tariff collection. There have been estimates between 30 and $100 billion of transshipment per year. You saw this in the deal with Vietnam, where it was 20% tariffs and then 40% tariffs on expected or potential transshipment goods, right? So one of the things that we've seen is China has used this sort of global economic coercion to create veneer centers of manufacturing across the globe. And the U.S. is trying to crack down on that to level the playing field.
All right, Brendan, I hear you talk about a couple of things. So AI, pharmaceuticals. One of the things you mentioned in your notes is how autos are going to be the best case study and how nuanced this policy really is. Can you dig into that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So auto manufacturing is a great case study of where all of this might be going. I don't think we'll end up with just blanket country level policies, and I think those blanket country level policies will get nuanced down to the HTS code or to the actual sort of segment or sector of goods, right? And I think that they will get nuanced down to a place where, the recognized dependencies we have on critical minerals or specialty alloys or on specific goods that are indigenous to some of our allies, where those are necessary for us to do the manufacturing in the United States, I think those goods will become subject to exceptions
Right.
or exemptions, very similar to USMCA. So automotive's a great example of this because basically you can have 15% of your auto that's being manufactured in the United States, you can have 15% of it be parts, components, and goods from other places.
Right.
And your entire tariff burden can be offset by the 3.75% tariff credit you get on the vehicle's MSRP, right? And so it's almost like you're tariff free if you have 15% of the goods coming from everywhere else. And that's because we realize that in many cases, there are things that the US doesn't make yet. And it's going to take a while for the US or our allies to build those things.
Right.
And we want to give, people the ability to have some leniency there.
Red headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal. Trump says August 1 tariff deadline won't be extended. We'll have more reporting on that. Brandon, we've got 30 seconds left here. When you talk to your customers, who's going to pay tariff costs? Is it going to be the importer, the manufacturer, the distributor, or the consumer? Or how are these tariffs going to be borne by the economy?
I think the consumer is going to be the last to feel it. And I think, the fact is, this is going to be absorbed somewhere in the supply chain. In 2018, when we had the original Trump tariffs on steel, the entire defense industry, the entire automotive industry, airline industry, they all ate it, right? Because you just needed the steel,
Yep.
and you didn't want to affect the end market. I think that the consumer is going to be the last to feel it on this one.
All right, hopefully that is the case. Brandon Daniels, thank you so much. Brandon Daniels, he's the CEO of Exiger, joining us from Chicago via Zoom, talking about tariffs, talking about supply chains. Fascinating and fluid situation. Coming up, we're going to check.